What is up, guys? It's Raziel here. Finally got a new mic. Hopefully it sounds a lot better than the previous one. And in this video, I wanted to talk about current Blood Death Knight balance in Legion. So, granted, I mean, I'm going to really try to keep my cool, as I have not in past videos. Blizzard states they want people to do bullet point, feedback, constructive, quote-unquote, feedback. So that's what I'm going to do in this video as best I can. And hopefully, Blizzard sees it. If you guys like it and see it, you agree with me with the problems that I think are currently with the Blood Death Knight tank, then please share this video, tweet it, do whatever you can to get it seen. Anyway, a little bit of background if you haven't watched any of my previous videos. I have been playing a Blood Death Knight since mid Wrath of the Lich King tank. I've been tanking since vanilla. I've got a pretty good grasp on the class and how things work. So let's just get right into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is cooldowns. So this is bullet point number 1, cooldowns. The biggest problem with the Blood Death Knight, in my opinion, right now is there are none. There are no cooldowns that reduce damage. There are no DRCDs baseline for Blood DKs. Now, just to give you a little bit of an idea why this is such a huge problem, there are mechanics that you need to prevent damage, such as the Spear on Cenarion in Emerald Nightmare, that affects your entire raid. So if the Death Knight takes a lot of damage there, which he will because he can't prevent any unless he severely gimps himself talent-wise, and I'll get into that a bit later. He doesn't have the Death Knight doesn't have the toolkit for that mechanic baseline, which every other tank in the game does. To give you a little bit of idea, I'm going to compare some cooldowns of just the other tank class, not just tanks. Let's see what classes have a baseline cooldown that reduces incoming damage of all types. Now, I'm not going to count talents. I'm not going to count things that only do specific stuff like magic damage or AoE damage. It has to be all damage, an all damage CD. Okay, so let's start off with mages. Okay, mages. Actually, no. Let's start off with warriors. Arms warriors. They have Die by the Sword, 100% parry, and it's a 30% damage reduction for its duration. I'm not going to go into the tank specs yet. This is just DPS. Warlock have Unending Resolve baseline, 40% damage reduction, 3-minute cooldown, 8-second duration. Shamans have Astral Shift, 1.5-minute cooldown, 40% damage reduction for 8 seconds. Rogue doesn't really have any. They do have, I know I said I was going to mention it, they have Feint, which is an AoE, so I'm not counting that. So rogues really don't have one because they have to talent into it to get it to be a full DR. So rogues are the only other class that don't have it. Okay, Discipline Priests. Power Word Barrier, 25%, no cooldown, and it has 7.5-second cast time, but it scales with their spell power. So it's more. Pain Suppression, 40% on a 4-minute cooldown. Shadow has Dispersion, 2 minutes, and it's a 2-minute cooldown, 60% damage reduction. Holy Paladins. Holy Paladins have passive block. Again, that's all RNG based. They have Blessing of Protection, which is all physical damage for 10 seconds. Divine Protection's 1 minute, 20% DR on an 8-second cooldown. Retribution Paladins, they also get Divine Shield and Blessing of Protection, but they also get Shield of Vengeance, which is a DR that stacks with their attack power. Monks, let's see, get Life Cocoon. Mistweavers get Life Cocoon. It's a DR that also increases healing. So, yeah, okay. Mages. Mages get Ice Blocks. They get Ice Block. It's all damage for 10 seconds. They can't move or do anything during it, but it's still a DR. Ice Barrier. It's all damage, which scales with spell power. Hunters, Aspect of the Turtle, 30%, 3-minute cooldown for 8 seconds. Druids, they all get Barkskin, 20% DR on a 60-second cooldown, and it lasts for 12 seconds. Feral, Also gets Survival Instincts on top of that, which is 50% for 6 seconds, and it has 2 charges. Guardians, that's a tank. I'm not going to go into the tank ones yet. Resto, they get Bark Skin and Iron Bark. They're both 20% DRs. Demon Hunters, the DPS spec gets Blur, 35% for 10 seconds on a 1-minute CD. Okay. DKs, Icebound Fortitude, that's for Unholy and Frost, 20% for 8 seconds on a 2-minute CD. Still not great, but still a cooldown. Now let's compare the tanks. Again, remember I said Blood Death Knights have none baseline. This is all baseline. They have 0. Okay? Not a single ability you can press that prevents incoming damage of all types. So, okay. Protection Warriors. They get shield block. They also, on top of their passive block, on top of critical block. Okay? They have Ignore Pain, which right now, as we all know, is scaling to insane levels to where they get, 2-3 million damage absorbs. There's no cooldown on Ignore Pain. It's just gaming it to make it get big shields. Shield Wall, a 40% damage reduction on a 4-minute cooldown. Demoralizing Shout, 20% damage reduction from all targets hit by it. Okay? So that's 4 to 5 on-demand all damage reductions right there on Protection Warriors. Okay, now let's go to Protection Paladins. They get Divine Shield, Divine Protection. They get Shield of Righteousness with 3 charges, Blessing of Protection, Ardent Defender, and Guardian of Ancient Kings. So those are all like 20 to 50% damage reduction cooldowns. And on top of they get passive and critical block just like Warriors do as well. So just on a button they can press, they have 5 right out of the gate. We're not counting talents or anything like that. Brewmaster Monks, they have Fortifying Brew, they have Iron Skin Brew, and they have Zen Meditation. Okay, so they have 3, just baseline. Guardian Druids have Iron Fur, Survival Instincts, and Bark Skin. They're all DRs, they're all CDs that can press, and they're baseline. They can just, you put them in the rotation, or they're oh shit buttons, essentially. Vengeance Demon Hunters. Demon Spikes, 2 charges. Is pretty much part of their rotation. Fiery Brand is a 40% CD cooldown, and Blur, they don't get Blur. Vengeance does not get Blur baseline. That was removed. But so they have 2. This baseline damage reduction. Once again, Blood Death Knights, 0. There is no way. We have no oh shit button. Something comes in, nothing to press. Okay. Now before we get into we say, oh well, Blood Death Knights have Bone Shield. That's a constant up damage reduction. You're wrong. The reason why Bone Shield doesn't count is because Death Knights don't have shields. They can't block like Paladins and Warriors do. Shields give the Paladin and Warriors more armor, so they automatically mitigate more because their armor is higher. I believe that Guardian Druids also have more armor. Demon Hunters do not have more armor, but they get they have, because they're an agility-based class. Same with Brewmasters and Druids. They get dodge, a lot more dodge. They dodge attacks quite a bit. Death Knights, Warriors, and Paladins don't really dodge attacks hardly ever. Okay, so Death Knights have parry. So does every other Death Knight. I mean, every other tank. Every other tank has parry as well, so you can't count that either. So pretty much our Bone Shield is like we're maintaining being able to have a shield. So it's the same as long as Bone Shield is up, it's like we have a shield, except for we don't block. We have no way to block. Okay? So Bone Shield is not a mitigation tool. I mean, it goes to show that we have no active mitigation when Blizzard had to add an invisible buff to Death Knights that after you use Bone Shield or Death Strike, that it counts as having active mitigation up for 3 seconds afterwards. It's a buff you can't see. Everyone knows it's in the game. That's sad that we have to get a buff, that pretty much functions and does active mitigation, even though it really isn't. It isn't active mitigation. It's just giving us that buff. Otherwise, we would get totally screwed by some mechanics. Okay, so comparing just baseline cooldowns, we have none. All the other tanks have quite a few. That's a problem. It's a problem when a tank class doesn't have a cooldown reduction, an on-demand, a baseline ability to prevent damage, when even every DPS spec in the game has one, except for rogues. But that doesn't make sense. Like, we're a tank, but we don't have an ability that prevents damage baseline? That doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so that's big problem number one. Now when we get into it, problem number two, in my opinion, is how gutted our mastery is. Okay, so right now, our mastery scales really, really, really poorly. Even if you stack mastery, which no Death Knight is doing right now, the blood shield that we get is minuscule. It's tiny. It's not worth going after. It doesn't provide the mitigation that we need. Even with stacked mastery, your blood shield is not going to survive one melee hit, or maybe it might survive. It might get up to 2 melee hits from just a regular white hit from a mob. Will clear your blood shield. So, and this has a drastic effect on one of our gold traits, which I'll get into in a bit when we go into the actual talent trees of our artifact weapon. Okay, but mastery right now needs a buff. It doesn't make any sense, really, for it to be effective at all. It needs to scale double or triple what it does now. I would love nothing more than to, instead of being haste crit, to go haste mastery. Or if you want to be super tanky, crit mastery. But as it is right now, mastery is a complete waste. It's a terrible stat. It's on the same level as versatility. It's awful. It's a problem because Blood Shield, it concedes that Blizzard's design here, Blood Shield is designed to be that thing that absorbs those huge hits, that is your DR. You hit Death Strike, it heals you. A big attack comes in, you absorb a ton of it as if you hit, Ignore Pain, or you hit, Divine Shield or something. But because our mastery is so terrible, it doesn't work. So mastery right now for Blood Death Knights is broken. It's a terrible stat. And until it gets buffed, it's going to remain that way. Which it ties into, right now, as most tanks have seen, there's been a huge nerf to tank DPS across the board, which, in my opinion, it affected Blood Death Knights and Vengeance Demon Hunters more than anyone, because a lot of our abilities are tied into self-healing, which is dependent on our damage. What Blizzard doesn't understand, the reason why Blood Death Knights AoE damage is so high is because we're forced into crit haste. We have no other choice stat priority-wise. So crit haste is why our damage is higher. We have to have it higher. And if they nerf our damage, it also effectively nerfs our mitigation. That's a problem. It's contradictory design. Okay? My problem with the next problem on the list, Blood Death Knight rotation. Okay? We don't really have one. It's more of, hey, do you have 5 stacks of Bone Shield? Great. Heart Strike and Death Strike. Dump your RP. You can't really game Death Strikes anymore. You can slightly if you take some big hits and then hit it, but against like AoE pulls and things like that, you're just spamming Death Strike to stay alive. Like, you don't really game it anymore because your blood shields. You're not gaming it based off how big your blood shield is going to be anymore. You're just healing yourself as much as you can. So really, the rotation is reduced to, hey, if you have less than 5 stacks of Bone Shield, hit Morrowrend. Keep Death and Decay down. Use our terrible artifact ability, Consumption on cooldown. It's really awful, and I'll get into that again in a little bit. But do pretty much spam Blood Boil, hit Blood Boil every time it's available, and when you have enough Bone Shield stacks, just Heart Strike and Death Strike. Heart Strikes into Death Strike. That's it. That's, to me, it's not engaging. It's not fun to just be spamming Death Strike for dear life, and not have an actual rotation to make your incoming damage less spiky and not give your healer a heart attack. Okay, so that's a problem. Which, if once I start suggesting some of the ideas I have to fix the Blood Death Knight, these are just ideas that I have, this rotation will become better. Okay, now let's get into one of the biggest problems right now, is our talent tree. Okay? Right now, there's not a single Blood Death Knight in the game that's ever going to take Bloodworms because it's garbage. Auto attack critical strikes. Even though one of our stats is crit, and we have high critical strike in general, how much damage that the Bloodworms give you, how much health is minuscule. And they don't spawn often enough. The proc rate isn't high enough. But to be honest, Bloodworms is something that, in my opinion, should be baseline because of how crappy it is. This talent, the state of crap that it's in, would be fine as just a baseline passive trait. And just if it's just kept the way it is numbers wise, then it would be a little boost. It would be good. But no one's going to take this over Heartbreaker because Heartbreaker is so useful right now. We need runic power. We need to recharge our runes, and we need runic power. That's the core of our survivability right now, is being faster, faster, faster. That's why we stack haste. Heartbreaker is, you have to take it. There's no other option. Blood Drinker, awful. Where I am right now, 382,000 health from a target over 3 seconds. Yeah, that's bad. I mean, why would you take that? I mean, it doesn't even make sense that these two are in the same row. Okay. Now I know I went into the talents and in my first video ever when I was kind of raving and swearing about it. But I have to go over this again because it's so awful. Like, I don't understand how this made it to the current build the way our talent tree is right now. Rapid decomposition, another thing we have to take. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to take rapid decomposition because we need more runic power. Again, we need this. Not only this, but it increases our damage. It increases how fast our death and decay is ticking. Okay, we're not going to take Soul Gorge over this. Soul Gorge is awful for the main reason because it's passive trait. Blood Boil no longer applies Blood Plague. You really think any Death Knight in their right mind is going to individually target huge mob packs and waste runes, Death's Caressing each one? And then losing all their DPS when they absorb these all to get some rune regeneration? It's gimmicky, it's clunky, it's stupid. This talent is worthless. It needs to be deleted from the game, just like Blood Drinker. Blood Drinker could potentially maybe get buffed. If it got buffed astronomically, it might be useful in some situations. But Soul Gorge is trash. There's nothing they can do to fix this ability other than remove its passive. If they removed its passive, it would be great. It would be an option. It would be actually fun gameplay. But its passive destroys the talent, and it's garbage. Spectral Deflection is a good talent, but it's never ever going to trump Rapid Decomposition. Now, if we had a different way to get rune power quicker, or if this was moved to a different tier, this would be great. But again, so it's a decent talent that's wasted on this tree because it's in a bad place in the tree and it's competing with something that we can't afford to give up. Ossuary, have to have it. It's really, really, really good, especially when you pair it with things like Shackles, a legendary that I happen to be lucky enough to get here, which is, you spend runic power and you get, it essentially translates to more death strikes. So does this. So you're getting more death strikes with this, which is the only way we can survive is death striking, really. So we need this. Blood Tap may compete with it because it has 2 charges now. But it's because we're using the other things like rapid decomp, and it's really not needed. It's not really competing with Ossuary. Anti-magic barrier. This is useless. I mean, it's 25% more health. Picking this talent pretty much removes why we have anti-magic shell in the first place, which is to mitigate and completely ignore some debuffs and some magic damage. If we start using this as a tank buff, as just having more effective health for 10 seconds, we're not going to have it up when we really need it. So, Anti-Magic Shell is just, it's not a good talent. Now, this might be worth it if it just said something like Anti-Magic Shell also reduces how much physical damage you take by 25 or 50% for 10 seconds. 25% it would be fine. Something like that. Then it would compete a little bit. You're like, huh, it's much better to take this on a certain fight than ossuary, instead of having to sacrifice a ton, like by getting rid of foul bulwark. But we'll get down there. Okay, Mark of Blood. It's trash. But it reveals how much of a problem our spec has in general. The only runic power spender we have is Deathstrike. There is nothing else. We're the only tank like this, where our main pooled resource is only used on one ability. That's what makes us have a lack of rotation and makes what we do press so dull, is because we don't have choices. We don't have decisions to make on what we spend our runic power on. And if you take Mark of Blood, yeah, it creates that choice, but it's a no-brainer choice, and you gimp yourself. Because realistically, you're never going to use Mark of Blood. I mean, 2% of your max health every time you're hit. That would be great if it was an AoE effect and you could throw it down on a pack, but then that would probably be overpowered. So Mark of Blood right now, I can see it being a half decent PvP talent, but as it is right now for PvE, it's never even an option. Mainly because of this. Red Thirst is so good. The only useful cooldown we have, which again doesn't protect us from damage in any way, shape, or form, is our Vampiric Blood. This makes it so we can use Vampiric Blood more often. But again, how well we recover in a dangerous situation when we use Vampiric Blood is halfway now dependent on our healer, how good our healer is, not just us. I mean, it helps our own healing a lot, but it's a little dependent on a healer. Okay, but we need Red Thirst. Unless you get, the luckiest bastard in the universe, and you also get the legendary belt, you have to take this. Only time you can consider taking Tombstone over Red Thirst is if you have the legendary belt, because the legendary belt's proc pretty much replaces Red Thirst on some level. Tombstone, it's decent, but and the best thing about it is it has such a short cooldown. But its problem is it kind of counters itself. So if you get up to 10 stacks of Bone Shield, and big hits coming in, like the Spear on scenarios, and you pop Tombstone to absorb, a ton of that damage, you have to game it perfectly so that you're going to have enough runes to hit Morrowind immediately after, so that you can have Bone Shield up as well. Because if you hit this but you don't have enough runes to have Bone Shield up immediately after, it's not going to be nearly as effective. So combining Tombstone with Blood Tap may be good, but then you're losing these two, which you can't afford to lose these two talents ever. The only way I would ever take Blood Tap and Tombstone is if I have the legendary bracers, which I do have right now. I got really lucky. And the legendary belt, and I had the trait unlocked in my order hall where I can equip 2 legendaries. See, but I shouldn't have to be subject to the gods of RNG to be effective. So, yeah, that's pretty useless there. This row here is it's kind of sad the way it is right now, because there really are no straight up good talents here. This can be useful, but it screws over your group on interrupts, because as we know, if you're interrupted from via fear, it doesn't incur the disability of the mob to cast that spell over again. So, but it can screw your DPS over that are trying to interrupt important things. Right now, everyone's using Tightening Grasp because it doesn't make any sense as it is. Gorfine's Grasp is such a long cooldown, but this takes a minute off of it. And you need that 70% slow for Mythic Plus. You have to, because you get higher up in Mythic Plus, you have to kite. You have no other choice but to kite. March of the Damned is okay for PvP, I guess, maybe. But it's the other arguably just as good in PvP, so it's trash. Don't worry about it. Will of the Necropolis. Like I said in my other video, if you're ever below 35% health, you're in way more trouble than Will of the Necropolis it can really help you with. Especially, you're very much less likely to get below 35% health if you have Foul Bulwark and you're managing your Morrowind stacks. So, Valor Bulwark, hands down, is the best in this row. Way more effective health, and we need it considering we have no baseline CD. And here's what really pisses me off. This right here, Rune Tap, this should be baseline. This should be our CD. This should be our baseline CD that prevents damage. It presents choice. Should I spend runes on it to get 25% damage mitigation? Or it could even be made even more of a choice if it costs a runic power instead. But Rune Tap, regardless, this ability should be baseline for Blood Death Knights. As should the 20% Icebound Fortitude. I don't understand why we don't have it anymore, but it's ridiculous where this is right now. Next row. Bone Storm, it can be okay against big speed pulls if you're doing AoE big pulls. Purgatory, a lot of people beginning of in beta and in PTR and now in live say this is the best talent. I disagree. Because of healing and because things are where they are right now, if you die, it's so hard right now where healers are right now to get you over the purgatory threshold and make you still survive the next few hits after they get you over. I just don't think it's that good. It's not as good as it used to be, even though it hasn't changed. What makes it not as good as it used to be is the current design of healers and the current design of our mitigation. See, now if we had Rune Tap baseline and you took Purgatory, man, you get hit with Purgatory, you hit Rune Tap right as you get healed, then it would be a little more viable. Whereas it is right now, I prefer Blood Mirror. Why? Because it's a 20% damage reduction and it's a DPS increase. And right now I play at a level where I feel like I'm not gonna die. And usually even in wipes on raids and things like that in Mythic Plus, I'm still the last person to die. So Purgatory, I've never so far this expansion haven't hit a point where wow, if I would have had Purgatory then we would have lived. Hasn't happened. So our talent tree right now has so many useless talents. And having leveled, for example, I've leveled the Vengeance Demon Hunter up to 110, finished Class All campaign. The choices in their talent tree are so much more interesting. So much more interesting than this garbage. But let's move on to the next bullet point here on my list. Just checking to make sure everything's still running here. Okay. So, next bullet point on my list right now is I want to talk about, we recently got that nerf, as we all know, to our DPS. An issue I have with that is right now the Death Knight, a lot of its survivability is tied to our DPS because of our healing abilities. But it sucks that we have abilities as a tank that get worse the fewer targets that we have. I'm fine with our DPS going down the fewer targets we have. I am not okay with our mitigation going down the fewer targets we have. No other tank suffers from that. So, for example, Heart Strike. If you get the talent in your tree that heals you, if you're only hitting one target like the boss, you're getting healed for a lot less. Blood Plague on the boss, a lot less. Our gold trait, Umbilicus Eternus, way less effective if we're fighting a boss. That's an issue. Okay, which leads me into our artifact weapon. Before I go into the traits and details of the artifact weapon, I want to again do like I did with the other with our CDs, is point out other classes. Okay, right now Consumption, our artifact's main weapon here, is the worst tank artifact ability in the game, hands down, bar none, the worst. Here's why. It's decent. It heals you. If you have a ton of targets, it can, pull you out of a sticky spot. But it provides no damage reduction. Okay? Compare it to the Warriors. The Warriors does DPS. Okay? It does a big burst of damage, just like Consumption does. It provides 100% block for 3 seconds. 100% of the attacks are blocked. That's a damage reduction that you take, which isn't affected by how many targets are on you. It's just as effective on a single target fight as it is on, fighting 10 mobs. Druid, it's a DPS plus 25% damage reduction for 10 seconds. Has a longer cooldown. That's a 1.5-minute cooldown, but that's a damage reduction. Again, this ability is just as effective regardless of how many targets you're tanking. Monks, DPS, complete melee attack immunity for 3 seconds. Again, you don't have to, whether you're fighting 5 targets or 1, it's just as good. Demon Hunter, Demon Hunter is arguably, in my opinion, the second worst, but it's still better than Consumption. It's a DPS, guaranteed 5 soul shards. Again, though, it is only a 40-second cooldown like ours. Oh, it's faster than ours by 5 seconds. But if you're fighting a boss or you're fighting trash, the heal you get from it, the benefit you get from it is just as good. Okay, it's just as good. It doesn't matter if it's a single target fight. Paladin, it's DPS plus 25% damage reduction for 9 seconds. Again, just as good regardless of how many targets. Our Consumption is complete horse shit on single target. The damage it does is bad, and it heals for the same, if not less, than just a crit death strike. But the death strike will still give us a tiny, minuscule blood shield afterwards. Consumption needs to be fixed. It sucks that our big ability that we got this expansion with our artifact weapon is completely worthless in a single target fight. Loses all of its effectiveness when we have, less than 3 targets to hit it with. And it provides no damage reduction regardless of how many targets you hit it with. It just heals you. That's not okay. Consumption needs to do some kind of damage reduction to make it still useful on single target. I'm fine with it healing for less against a single target, but it needs to provide, I would say, a blood shield equal to the amount of damage it does, at least something. Because as it is right now, it's a joke compared to all the other tanks' abilities that they get with their artifact weapon. Okay, now let's get into the root of the artifact weapon here. The Maw of the Damned is it's again it surprises me how many DPS traits are on a tanking weapon. Right now, Maw of the Damned has 6 traits that only affect our DPS, that increase our DPS. One of them of which is gold. Okay, compared to the warrior has 4 DPS, the druid has 2, the monks has 4, the paladin has 5, the demon hunter has 6 like us. But here's the kicker. How many of these traits are purely damage mitigation traits? Affect how much damage we take. Maw of the Damned has 3. Warrior has 6. Druid has 5. Monk has 4. Demon hunter right now only has 1, but they have a lot more healing ones than we do. And paladin has 5. One of which is gold. One of the monks is gold as well. So there's a lot of traits on here that are damage focused, yet Blizzard is nerfing damage. Again, like I said, it's going back to they seem to be so confused about where the hell this spec sits. They forgot how they designed it, and they make these knee-jerk reaction changes, and they don't realize how much it affects other things. But I'm going to go into a couple of these traits here. Okay, we know that Consumption is garbage. Okay, this is a good one. This is, again, pure damage. Oh no, this one is the one that increases. When you need this, it increases how many chance to have more bone shields. The biggest outliers here on our tree that are a huge problem to me is this here, Unending Thirst. This talent, and I have it selected now because I took it because it was just simply on the way. I might as well grab it. So when I'm off-tanking, it comes into use. This ability is only useful in off-tanking. Since our blood shields and our mastery are so awful, they don't stay up long enough to get the 25% leech or the 25% death strike damage bonus. Okay, and again, so right now it essentially does nothing. It does a whole lot of nothing. A gold trait that does nothing because of what they did to our mastery. It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left one is doing at Blizzard right now. Skeletal Shattering, you have to have it, especially since we're stacking crit. It's the only way to absorb some more damage. Because again, we have no baseline DR CD. Umbilicus Eternus. This essentially is great, but once again, like Consumption, it's great against a lot of targets. But man, it's like 1/5 as effective against single target. Because it's based off of your dot that you apply to everything, but if you only have one target to apply it to, its effect is neutered. It's not good. It's something like the only thing out of our entire tree here, mitigation-wise, that is useful against bosses is this gold trait and Dance of Darkness and Maw of Hell. Like, these are the only thing that helpful against single target fights. Because Blood Feast loses, again, a lot of effectiveness once you're on a single target. So Maw of the Damned right now is not designed very well. It's designed so much around DPS, which is continually getting nerfed. How come there are so few talents here that prevent damage against us? Or make us heal for a lot more, or something. Like, affect our blood shield in some way. That's a problem. Okay, that's one of the big outliers here. Is our artifact weapon sucks. A lot of our talents suck in the artifact weapon, especially the gold ones. These gold talents are things you should want to go for because they change your gameplay, because they help you in so many ways. This is one of those. It can be really helpful if you're stacking crit, which you should be. This is not at all, and this is very situational. Okay, it's going to provide a small survivability boost single target, a decent one multi-target. But it's, again, it has its niche. It has its place. And finally, on the last point that I really want to make is there's quite a few mechanics in the game, like auras and other things that straight up eat bone shield charges, like just effects that just tick. So it's near impossible. A good example is like Cenarius, where any aura that's currently going that does any kind of damage is taking stacks off of your bone shield. This shouldn't be happening. Bone shield, in my opinion, in a lot of ways should be redesigned. Instead of having, stacks that get taken away, it'd make more sense if it was just a buff you put on yourself, how the old bone shield worked. I don't know. There's got to be some way to make it so either charges don't fall off on certain attacks but still absorb damage, or a certain damage threshold has to be met in order for a stack to drop off. Yeah, because that's complete bullshit that happens, and it completely gimps out Blood Death Knights on any fight where there's any kind of aura going on. But right now, in my opinion, the biggest problems with our class is consumption, our mastery, and the fact that we have no baseline damage reduction cooldown. That needs to change if we want to stay competitive, especially top tier rating and top tier Mythic Plus. That has to change. We can't be at the whims of the same nerfs that damage classes get from Blizzard. Ideally, how tank should work in World of Warcraft is, if you, in my opinion, you should be able to pick a class that you like, pick a tank, pick the tank spec of that class. Let's say you pick Druid because you like the lore, or you like this, or whatever it should be. I shouldn't just be viable. I shouldn't just squeeze by the the hair on my nuts to get past content. I should feel like no matter what tank I pick, I can be the best tank in the game, the best tank on my server, whatever, because I have the toolkit. I have the toolkit that I need to be successful, and then I have to learn it. I have to use my skill to become better. And another player that's more skilled than I should be able to pick any other tank class and be better than me. What tank I pick shouldn't be so much, wow, you're the gimp tank or you're the good tank. Like right now, warriors are parsing so much better on mitigation than any other tank in the game. And it's because the balance is all off. Like, it shouldn't be how it is. You should be able to pick any spec you want, and if you're good enough and put in the time, be better than other people that are a lower skill level than you, and learn from people that are a higher skill level than you. But it's not how it is right now. It's, hey, warrior or die. Warrior or die is how it is right now, and that's a huge issue for me. They need to fix this. Fix Blizzard, if you're listening. Fix consumption, for the love of Christ, please. Buff our mastery. Make mastery worth getting. Don't make me cry tears of blood every single time I get a Titan Forge piece with mastery on it. Okay? If you don't want us doing so much damage, don't force us into crit haste. And when I say don't force us into crit haste, I don't say do it the Blizzard way and nerf crit haste. No, buff mastery. Okay? I'm not saying make it overpowered or godly, but make it viable. Make it a possible choice. Okay? And give us a baseline cooldown. I don't understand why every DPS class in the game except one has a baseline DRCD and a tank class doesn't. That doesn't make any logical sense. And don't use the class fantasy bullshit, because RuneTap is class fantasy, Icebound Fortitude is class fantasy. We've already accepted that we're always going to have the lowest mobility in the game. So give us something. Give us a way to prevent damage without severely gimping ourselves on the talent tree. Or fix the talent tree so where we're not gimping ourselves if we take a DRCD. Please. Because you're clearly putting mechanics in the game that require us to have a DRCD. I don't want to be the only tank in the game that doesn't have the toolkit to self-sustain during those mechanics and have to call for externals. I'd be fine if half the tanks had to do that, but that's not how it is right now. Right now, it's Death Knights are the only tank in the game that need to call for externals on the spear mechanic on Cenarius. And who knows what other mechanics you're adding to the game like that. So, I like you adding mechanics like that, but give me the toolkit to counter that myself. I should have stuff baseline, and my talents should give me flavor. I shouldn't be forced to screw myself over for the entire fight so I can deal with one mechanic in phase 2. So that's it, guys. That's my rant and the current things in Blood DKs. Please like, subscribe if you liked it, and share this if you agree. If you agree that this is an issue, I know there are a lot of other classes in the game right now that are suffering tremendously. Frost DKs, Arcane Mages, Warlocks of every spec. In my opinion, class balance right now is the worst it's been since Vanilla. It was worse in Vanilla, but it's the worst it's been in a long time. I've never seen it where an entire class, all 3 specs, were not viable. Sorry, Warlocks. Feels bad, man. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share if you agree. And I'll catch you guys later. Keep it real.